Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 3. It's called Choose to Live. So, full spoilers for the episode as always. We have an assassin, well, a thief who happens to kill some people as they're thieving, but essentially some Starfleet officers are murdered by a Vulcan, who's in the same order as Michael's mother. And I don't remember the name of that order, so I'll just say that. That's the A plot. But
they're the Kwisatz Haderach, I think.
I get that reference. Very good. Honestly, it's not like that dissimilar, to be in a lot of ways. So we have that as the A plot. We also have some subplots. One, of course, continuing Gray's like spiritual journey into the body, the synthetic body, and we also have some more stuff with Booker and Stamets trying to figure out the anomaly. So that just continuing all the things that we're kind of expecting it to, with the A plot being kind of the standalone plot of the episode. So yeah, Michael and her mother end up going on a little adventure together. They kind of pair them up because it's a diplomatic mission, because they want to play nice with the Vulcans. And even though they're not in the Federation, give them cooperation, give them kind of like you play by their rules when it comes to apprehending, because it is this person that is in their group. But we do get an example of this woman's crimes at the start, where she teleports onto this Federation ship, and
really sweet looking one. Just as a side note.
Oh, you mean the exterior of the ship?
Yeah, it looked really cool.
Oh. But they're just transporting what do we call it?
Dilithium?
Thank you. Dilithium crystals. They're just transporting that because they're giving it out for free, which is what's really weird about the theft, is like we're giving it out. Like, why is anyone stealing it? We're handing it
just
over.
Just wait your turn.
And there is actually kind of a reason eventually in the episode as to why, like, because there's technically rules about asking for it, and this won't apply without giving up valuable information. So we can get to that, but there's kind of a moral debate between Michael and her mother about whether or not, like, okay, you think she's a killer, she's killed these people, but what if there's context? You know, you believe Spock was innocent of just being a murderer when, like, everyone thought he was guilty of something like that. So why isn't it possible that she has context? And it's like, well, she murdered some Starfleet officers and essentially cold blood. So, so that's the kind of debate, and it leads them on a bit of an adventure. And we'll get into the details in a bit. But how did you feel about Choose to Live?
I thought it was a very well balanced episode. There wasn't too much of one thing or another. Actually, there's like 3 plots going on, and I do think all 3 are interesting. I like that we get the continuation of the pairing of Book and Stamets together. And I like I don't remember the name of, because they don't refer to themselves as like a Vulcan, it's something else.
It's because they're on a new planet, aren't they? Because they had to move from Vulcan to another planet, so they're going by something else now, but they are still Vulcans.
Starts with an N. I'll know it next time. They are still Vulcans, yes.
Yeah.
So Navarre, is it the Navarre?
That sounds right. Yeah, Navarre.
Yeah, I think so. So I like their because Stamets is like so what's the right, he's got energy to him, and he can't quite keep to himself when it comes to his patients, and he has to deal with people with the Vulcans who have to meditate while they science. I thought that was kind of fun.
He has energy he can't keep to himself. Sounds really dodgy.
He's an anxious man, okay?
Yeah. I mean, and that plot is like they're trying to figure out. He's got a theory that it's this type of wormhole, but there's one thing going against it. Like, all the things line up for it to be this, except the fact that there's no tachyons. Right, that's the one thing that's missing. And
they suspected some sort of wormhole that's going through space.
Yeah, and he wants to go and consult all the Vulcan scientists to like let them sort of go wild on it and figure out and prove or disprove this. Book wants to go and says he wants to feel helpful and he wants to help discover things, and Stamets doesn't say no. He just says, like, to give them a proper like the information for them to actually figure this out, I'm going to have to very clinically go through everything that happened. You know, your tragedy is going to have to be like spelled out in like minutia detail. So And Booker,
Maybe it's not good.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Booker's like, no, I want to go. I can handle it. I'll feel useful. And but he does. We kind of just gloss over it. We don't really get to see him hear most of it, to be honest. It mostly skips ahead, and we get some funny. Yeah, I agree. It was kind of funny. Stamets being frustrated that the Vulcans start meditating. And he's like, how about we have nap time later and we could do science things now?
This is how you guys science?
He's like, well, I guess I'll just wait over there then until they're ready.
And I appreciate, I mean, just to stick with this plot line, I appreciate the mind meld scene where Book gets some closure to it. And I really like this Vulcan leader lady. She seems very classically Vulcan.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because that's like ultimately the scientists say there's no evidence of tachyons. It can't be this type of wormhole. And he's like, damn it must be, because otherwise I'm just lost with nothing.
Otherwise, it's something we don't know, and that's frustrating.
Yeah. And it's Vulcan lady who says, hey, maybe like we've got a witness, and like if those tachyons were present, there'd be a certain glow. Booker says he's been asked this before, there was no glow, and she's like, well, yeah, but like, you know, it was very tragic. Like, if you let me mind meld, I can actually, like, I can get the footage. I can basically look right at it. We can see it again and like know for sure. But when it first of all, there's no glow. There's no tachyons. They don't know what it is. But more so, he says, no, let me see something else before we finish this. And like, he gets to see his like family before they died again one last time. The sort of the happy memory kind of. And it kind of helps him a little bit. Like, he's feeling a little bit better by the end of the episode, and he's willing to like sort of realize that he can't shield himself from the memory of his planet. He has to kind of embrace the memories and sort of make it part of him. And yeah, so yeah, this plot was okay. I have no real complaints about this plot.
Cool.
More on the others soon. We'll tackle the other subplot quickly, because I don't think there's too much to say. For the most part, it's just, okay, we've hooked up Grey's body, and they're going to like transfer the soul, the mind, whatever you want to call it, and then Adira is just frustrated because they have to just wait. It might never happen. It might have failed, or at some point Grey just might wake up, and it's.
Well, did they transfer the you know, the thing inside of her? Or, sorry, inside of them?
I don't know.
Inside of Adira into the synthetic. Because I don't think that's how Adira is able to communicate with Grey. I think they're communicating through the host.
Adira was like in Scrubs, I think, or something akin to Scrubs at the start of the episode, so that would maybe imply that they did remove the thing.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess they did.
The symbiote, yeah.
The symbiote, yeah. So, I guess they did. So, I mean, it's kind of a nothing plot to me, this episode, because it is just kind of like, do the thing, a couple of scenes of Adira being stressed, and then a scene of Grey waking up. And I'm not going to lie, I do think like the wake up scene is a bit overly sappy. Like, all the speech making that Grey does, I was kind of just detached from it.
Yeah. They do come off very young in this. You know, Grey says, you know, when I get to see you, I'll hug you, or something, which isn't like a Starfleet thing to say. It's a nitpick, but like it comes off as something a young person would say. And they are, you know, young. I guess, you know, Adira is kind of the Wesley Crusher of this series.
Yeah.
And in a way. And I thought it was kind of strange that they didn't seem to have, like, I know they were partners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Adira and Grey, they love each other. They say that they do. But like when Grey has a body again and Adira is there, they sort of, you know, look at each other and that's about it. Like, there's no real embrace or anything that shows that they were partners before. And maybe I'm thinking, well, maybe they're just so young, so that's not really, it's not like a sexual thing. But I don't know, like I was expecting more, or I'm not getting the sparks from the two of them I thought were supposed to be there.
I mean, it could be a lack of chemistry. That's possible.
Yeah.
It could also just be that there's a reason for this, and maybe one you suggested, maybe it's something else, but maybe it's something they're actually going to explore with them throughout the next couple of episodes, and that, you know, it's not something to be concerned about necessarily, because it's like, oh, that's going to be a plot point, that's going to be something to talk about, it's going to be something they address and like have a B plot about. I kind of expect it. So, and maybe it's just a case of, it's it's weird now because it's been so long and you've got this synthetic body now, so maybe there's a bit of build up and a bit of nerves and like, you know, how do we treat this exactly? Maybe there's just a little bit of that. I don't know, but
yeah, it's a new thing and it's weird.
yeah.
Sure, I can buy that. I think it's interesting how they kind of like are a mirror of Stamets and Culber, because Culber's kind of, he's a mushroom man. He was dead also for a while and was brought back in a different kind of body.
Which it ties back into how they've taken this weird parental role over them, which, you know.
It's amazing how much they actually do like parallel each other in a way.
I think, my main problem was just the dialogue. I find Gray, and I've felt this before in little bits here or there, but it was especially thick at this big like ending moment for these characters, is that just like he's overly like happy and like thankful and just like everything is so smiley, and maybe I'm just
a bit much, yeah.
maybe I'm just a grumpy bastard, but I'm like, tone down the happiness a bit, like be a bit more reserved.
Yes. I mean, maybe they are young. They don't have the cynicism that we do yet.
I mean, I know Star Trek's meant to be optimistic and hopeful and all the rest of it. I want all those things, but there's a but when you watch like other Star Treks, it's not like Riker's not just happy-go-lucky all the time. Yeah, he'll have a smirky moment here or there, but Riker will get serious. Like
usually after his Holodeck 4 program.
Very good. Very good.
You haven't watched that episode yet, but he's got Holodeck 4 is Riker's holodeck. Don't go in there.
Okay, interesting. Well, I've seen him use the holodeck many times, so I've got a few guesses as to what might be in holodeck program number 4, but we'll see.
I think it's just Holodeck 4. I don't know which program it is.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so it's not his, like it's still a shared holodeck. Although I hope he wipes it down when he leaves. Anyway,
I'm pretty sure there's a sign on it saying, Riker's. It's like putting something in the fridge, the communal fridge. Just don't touch it.
Oh dear. So yeah, that was basically it. I don't really have much more to add, to be honest, other than just I thought the ending was a bit sappy.
I don't know. I need more. I guess I need more chemistry. Maybe it is just all the smiling is just a lot.
Just always so happy, and I think a lot of their interactions with each other have been kind of like that. Like, it was a really nice idea at first. This idea that this relationship is kind of continuing in a non-corporeal kind of way. And that was a unique way to have them together for a while. But a lot of the conversations do kind of boil down to like overly happy and like sappy and stuff. And it's almost like why aren't they having I think the one time they maybe like tried to have them like disagree on something, it was kind of annoyingly written like a CW drama instead of like being like a natural disagreement where it's like, oh, they're really having a proper fight. Like instead just like a forced contrived bit of drama instead. So yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's just comes out of character writing, I guess.
Maybe technically we have a new character on the ship now, which is will be interesting to explore, and it's a robot, so maybe Gray will be able to do things that our other characters can't do.
Does Gray have super strength now?
I mean, he was built by Soon.
Well, based on technology by Soon.
Based on the Soon technology.
Soon's been dead for a bit.
I'm sure Star Trek will still have a Soon in it somehow.
This is the great grandson. There'd be more greats than that. Like it's been 1,000 years since they jumped.
Unless they're all robots.
Oh, true. Yeah, unless they've all transferred data style bodies, then that's sure. Yeah, it could be maybe just the great grandson who eventually perfected transferring to a robot.
Well, Picard showed us that there's another Soon child that we didn't know about who looks just like Brent Spiner, and maybe he spread his seed, you know?
Let's be honest, that only happened because they wanted an excuse to have Brent Spiner have a role.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Well, Puffy Data was there.
Sure, but they could only keep that going for so long because at least so far they've been adamant the Data is definitely still dead. They've not went back in that. I'm not convinced they won't at some point, but they've not went back on it yet.
No.
So, hey, we'll see. Main plot. So this lady, I think my big problem with this main plot, other than just maybe some of the, the over direction at times, like there's a lot of scenes with this the villain in this episode, for lack of a better term, where it'll do this like low angle Dutch angle that will slowly sort of like straighten out as she talks at her, and I'm like, oh my, stop, come on, camera work, stop it, like you're overdoing it. But it's like, okay, alright, so they're going to track, and they've basically tracked where she probably is, and they're going to take Booker's ship. Why the captain? I mean, okay, they kind of explain, I guess, why she's on this mission. It felt kind of weird to me that they're going on this away mission with only 2 crew of like Discovery, and the captain's one of the 2. I don't know, it just felt a bit weird. But hey,
Well, our mom's there.
they track her to this weird moon that's actually a big ship, or is this a moon that's been converted into a big ship?
They
And-
wandering earthed it, but with the moon.
yeah, which honestly, see, when they actually, because they have an encounter with her first, because the assassin lady beams aboard and like sort of threatens them and says, "Don't continue on this path or you will die." For lack of
Choose to live.
choose to live.
I tried to do it my best Austromulan accent.
When they get to this moon though, and they start looking around, and it's basically like these like rock cryo chambers for this like alien species, I was like, this is giving me serious Prometheus vibes right now.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I was getting that too. Very much.
I was getting serious Prometheus vibes.
Yeah, all the images were carved into the rock walls too.
Yeah, and the color scheme, just everything about it was very Prometheus. But
We are not fans.
no, but they find like the engine that's like driving this whole thing, and eventually they leave Tilly out as bait. Tilly's got a subplot kind as well. Actually, we'll talk about that after.
Tilly definitely should be dead after this episode. Or it should have happened pretty early on in this episode. I was throwing that out there.
But I mean, plot armor, okay? She's got plot armor. So they leave her as bait. Villain lady shows up, and Michael's mother wants to, not kill her, wants to talk her down, wants to try and get her to just sort of come over to her side. And they've kind of like figured out some of this from like the rock drawings at this point. But what we ultimately learn is that this is an alien species where their planet was dying, so they evacuated on their moon. And the planet that they've now arrived at is the planet they were intending to come to. This was their kind of their new promised land, if you will. And what this villain get involved, and villain's maybe a bit of an unfair term because it's a bit more sympathetic than that, but she basically encountered this moon and it was being attacked by like grave robbers, right? There was someone, and one of the aliens that was here was awake, and she discovered what their purpose was, where they were going, and she kind of made it her sole like duty to like protect them.
She got a distress call that was sent out like psychically.
Oh sure, yeah.
So she said she felt like a swarm of emotion and like overwhelmed with love and fear and like family and stuff like that, and because they were asking for help, and she's part of this Kwisatz Haderach, whatever they're called, I can't remember. Part of this thing where if you accept the call for help, then you are basically there. We learned this in Picard that you're like assigned to them until you die or they let you go.
So it's like, okay, your goal is fairly noble. I still don't know if it justifies like how she outright kills Starfleet officers though. I don't know if it ever quite felt like that was justified, given that like the whole point of Starfleet is that they're willing to help with things like this. Like, so it feels.
Yeah, Burnham even brings it up. Like, why didn't you just ask?
And it's like there is kind of this weird part where it's like, oh well, like they're supposed to be kept secret until they wake up, and you only give dilithium to civilizations that will sort of say, hey, we're this race, we're on this planet, and this is where we need it. You have to be like a civilization, and to do that, she would have to like sort of like admit that there's a civilization and who they are, and they're trying
to be secret, and there's something about their biology that includes latinum, which is a sought after element in the universe.
Yeah. So, and that's why there was like grave robbers, looking for them. And the reason why, so the killings, the harsh like kill stuff and the thievery was only just started recently, and it's only because of this anomaly, because she wanted to make sure the moon could move again if this anomaly started coming towards them. So it was kind of like in reaction to this big event happening. Ultimately though, Michael, like they kind of figure out that they really should have woken up. Like, they're already here. Like, why haven't they
Yeah.
woken up? So it's like the cryo sleep chambers have actually like kept them asleep too long. We think we can just sort of like, you know, fix it and tell them to wake up, and then your duty's done because they're awake and you've protected them. Like, they've
Mhm.
made it here.
And they got the dilithium. They can keep it, I guess, in case they need
Yeah,
to
yeah.
evacuate real quick because of the anomaly.
And I think I do like there's a great shot actually when they go back up on the ship. There's a great shot of like all these little ships from the moon going down to the planet, so you can sort of see that
Mhm.
they are. We never really get to see them properly up close or anything, but we just get to see like the idea of like, oh no, there's a whole civilization.
Yeah,
There's
we
no-
get one dead one, but
Yeah.
and like from afar, it looks kind of like a large insect hybrid thing. It definitely
Yeah.
doesn't look like anything I recognized from Star Trek before,
No,
which
it's
makes
definitely-
sense.
Yeah, it's a new thing. I was even thinking about Lizardy with the eye and
Mm. Yeah, a little bit.
yeah. So, so you know, like I think the overall idea this is completely fine. Like it's great. This kind of comes back to what I was saying before. Is like I think it's just the actual dialogue and the debating where she's got like Tilly with the sword up to her neck and like they're trying to actually argue this out, and the actual like debate between Michael and her mother. I just never really felt like the actual debate that they were having was that interesting, or it felt like Michael's mother's her mind was made up, and she was just hoping Michael would see her way of things, rather than ever really be convinced of anything otherwise. And I don't feel like Michael ever does convince her of anything otherwise. And given that that's kind of the core debate throughout most of the episode is between them, I felt a little unfulfilled that, like, it just never...
I guess it's still true to their characters. Like Michael is still gung ho for Starfleet, and Starfleet is still not something that that people can trust yet because they don't know they can ever since the burn, happened so recently. And I don't think Michael's mom has really been very into Starfleet since she had to abandon after the Klingon attack and all that in Section 31 and her dealings with all of that. So I think it's still true to their characters that Michael's mom would be like, look, I've invested in these people for like over a year. I understand them. This is like what they do. You need to be more respectful of this culture. And Michael's like, yeah, but they killed Starfleet, so they should go under Starfleet law. Like, why would we give them over to the Vulcans?
I just think it's too one-sided, and like Michael's mother learns nothing and doesn't really have like any kind of thing she learns from this, and that would have been a more interesting conclusion than just she's right and Michael was wrong. And like,
well, I think it is interesting that Michael has to give them to Navarre, or they're giving this I don't know, prisoner, I suppose, over to Navarre in hopes that they will bring justice to what was done, but they have to trust that they'll do that, which is just part of building trust again with the Vulcans so that they'll join the Federation.
yeah, and that part's fine. I have no problem with that. I'm just saying I feel a little unfulfilled with the actual like character drama in the episode, because I don't think it ever gets to, like, I don't feel like both sides have good points. Well, they kind of do. Like, there is good points there to be had, right? There is, she committed murder, so it doesn't really matter what the reason is. She has to face justice for those murders, and like, okay, but she may have a good cause and a good reason, and it's like, okay, that's fine. But I never really felt like Michael's mother ever like really saw the other side of it, or ever really accepted or agreed with anything. She just was right, and then it was their way at the end, because like the president and Oded Fair both agreed that no, we're going to hand, and I like the reason why. I like it's to build trust with the Vulcans. It's like, no, we have to give them this and sort of say, no, we're working with you. We're not going to like throw our weight around and like demand vengeance or anything silly like that, and that's completely fine. So it's one of those things where I didn't feel like the actual like arc for the character in the episode was that fulfilling. Like everything made sense from like a cold like analytical like if I just like when I look at the raw bones of what the plot idea is, I'm like, yeah, this makes sense as a Star Trek story. You give them a difficult situation, you give me a sympathetic villain, they're doing things for a very good reason, but ultimately they still have to like answer for those crimes. And I appreciate that the villain in this case does kind of like say, okay, my task is done, I will now accept whatever punishment comes to me because I did these things, off I go. Maybe like another thing could have been like maybe this character like, because I felt like once they did like interact with her, like she never really showed any like like she was so dead set on her task that she did just sound villainous most of the time, even though the reason she was doing it was actually quite noble and like had a sweet reason for it. She always came across as very threatening, very "I will kill you." There was never like a moment of like appealing to their sense of like right and wrong on her side. So like it never made me like kind of like question if we should root for her or like we should try and like show her more leeway and mercy or whatever. You know?
There's an episode in of Enterprise where Captain Archer is sort of kind of under the influence where he's protecting like this enemy's ship that's full of babies, but they're like insects and stuff like that. And it's why is he protecting, like everyone's like putting all their energy into protecting these babies for the enemy that is, you know, they're just going to hatch and then kill us and stuff like that. And but he's like, well, if we don't, they're just babies, so if we don't protect them, then it's, you know, then we're no better than them, basically. So we're here to say that we're better than them, but actually there's some sort of gas in there where like it's a survival technique where if you come close to the nest, like you automatically become like a matron of the nest, and like it's like a survival thing that's built into their eggs or whatever. And so I was kind of getting vibes of that, but I do like that she is doing it because not so much like she got like the psychic distress call, and I was thinking maybe she was more under the influence or something, and that would make her like maybe more forgiven or more empathetic for you know, killing on behalf of them. But instead they went with no, it's just her duty to do it because she swore a pledge to them or an oath to them, which does, you know, line up with what we know from them in the Picard series. So I guess I like that. It reminds me of a Star Trek thing, but it's different enough still. I'm
like, because there's the one line she has when we see her like stealing from the ship early on. There is one moment she says to like the captain or whoever's in charge in the room, like I'm just going to take these and leave. If you go for that phaser, you know, like I'm going to have to kill you. I mean, she doesn't say those exact words, but that's the sentiment of the scene. And he goes for the phaser, and then she kills him. And all I could think was like, okay, I get that this like clan of like powerful women all use swords, but we do live in a world where there's weapons that just stun people and knock them out. Like you don't really have to be killing people. Like you're insisting on using the swords.
It's true. There is another option here.
Yeah, like you could just knock them out and take it, and not kill them.
Yeah, get some stunning swords.
Yeah. So it's hard to sympathize and like really feel that sense of it. And I think part of it as well is just like down to like performance and maybe, and to an extent, dialogue. But like I feel like there's other examples of stories where you've got a character who's doing something bad, but you can tell right away that they feel that they're backed into a corner or that they've got like a noble reason or something. And I feel like this performance from this actress just feels like, it feels more like one of the villains on the show that just happens to have a good reason ultimately why she's doing it at the end, as opposed to feeling the sense that, oh, there's a good reason. And maybe that's because they don't want us to have a side with Michael's mother, right? When she's trying to convince Michael that, or maybe there's good context for this. Maybe they're trying to make it sort of like hard to tell for us so that we won't know until all the, you know, everything's laid out on the table. But it leaves it hard to actually kind of like buy the slide into this is sympathetic, I think, once it gets there. But mostly that's just the way how I felt. I kind of felt cold about the whole thing, where I was like, I don't really like, like I don't really care about you. I like the idea of the episode, and like I say, I like the shot of all the ships going down to the planet. I thought that was a nice, pretty moment. But that's about it.
Yeah, they don't skimp on the budget in this show, so
nope, they do not.
It definitely looks good. I have one nitpick.
Oh, go on.
And it's from the guy from The Mummy.
Yes, Oded Fehr. Yeah,
Oded Fehr. He makes a joke with Burnham about how like they pay me by the letter or something, and there's no like I don't understand how that phrase could have lasted through 1,000 years of without having any currency.
That's a fair point. I mean, it's definitely a nitpick.
It's
but
such
it's
a
fair
nitpick,
point.
but
Yeah.
like that's the one moment where I went, I don't think so, Star Trek. How's that phrase still around? I mean, I guess technically there's like people do trade latinum, which is what these aliens have in their bodies or something, but
do we know there's no currency still though? Did we know it didn't come back after the burn and all that nonsense?
I don't know. I mean, if the Federation is using it, like it's not like the Federation pays their employees. They just give them everything they need.
Yeah, but maybe, I don't know. But maybe I mean, there's definitely currencies elsewhere because we saw tons of like smugglers and stuff, and there's people like selling stuff in black markets. We saw that all last season, like in various
Well,
episodes.
Deep Space Nine establishes because they want to be like, the Old West in space. They do have a form of currency that is used. There's there's some sort of credit system that the Federation has in dealing with other species.
Is it just because the Federation don't use currency? If they don't still, there's still clearly a lot of the universe that does. So it's not like it's a foreign concept that they don't understand.
Okay, I still don't know. Like it was the season one or something. Wait. There's season one where Burnham is using the phrase like a silk for your thought. It's like a penny for your thoughts, but it's something else, right? And she's like, I don't know what that means. And it's because they don't have currency. So like, why would she know what that means?
It's been 1,000 years. We have no idea the context of which Oded Fair's grown up in like this future.
You're right. It's a whole new world.
But there's definitely other races and species that still use currency. I mean, hell, like even in Next Gen, like the Ferengis' whole thing is that they buy and sell and trade. Like that's the whole shtick.
Yeah.
So
their women are their currency.
Maybe if you've never left,
they use gold pressed platinum. There's gold pressed platinum that they use for trade and collecting, and wealth is determined in the Ferengi culture by how much platinum you have.
That's absolutely fascinating.
I appreciate that reference, but it is. Their gods are centered around it. They pay platinum to their gods.
I get that someone who's never left Earth, and if there's no currency on Earth, they won't really get any like currency references. But this is a guy who's interacting with aliens constantly. He knows what currency is.
All right. Like, it's a nitpick, I know.
I can't believe you got me defending Discovery now. What are you doing?
I know. I love that. That's my complaint of all of Discovery.
There's so many shit things in this show you could be taking umbrage with, and this is what you're picking your hill to stand on or die on.
I mean, like, I don't know if it just seems like a weird thing to say for someone who doesn't get paid, who's never been paid. It's just it's a modern day thing, and that wouldn't be around in the 1,000 years in the future. In this future that's been established.
I mean, I've stuck up for this slide and just watched next episode have a weird pop culture reference that shouldn't exist in the future.
You are the weakest link.
What, you went to that? That was the one that you thought of?
I don't know.
You didn't think of
honestly, I don't watch anything other than Star Trek. So.
You watch movies? Like, they could be Get Away From Her, You Bitch, or something? Like,
oh, that's way older than whatever The Weakest Link was. I think it was just called The Weakest Link.
Yes, it was. The Weakest Link was called The Weakest Link. Yes, that's correct. Are you trying to argue that a movie from the 80s that is as popular as Aliens is not still in pop culture? Come on.
They've never talked about it in any Star Trek.
But they were talking about The Weakest Link. Carla, what's your point? Oh my god.
There is a movie fan in Enterprise, but he's not talked about Alien.
Next episode, someone's just going to say, "Never tell me the odds," and just starts dropping Star Wars lines left and right, and hope no one notices.
Actually, there was a bit of a Star Wars thing in this with the whole "that's no moon."
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, that kind of was.
Yeah. A little bit.
I mean, I very quickly stopped thinking about Star Wars and started thinking about Prometheus, so I forgot about the Star Wars stuff even happened.
Yeah, the strong Prometheus vibes in this.
Yes. Yes. Very bad film. Not as bad as Covenant, but pretty bad. So yes, I guess that's it. That's the episode. Let us know what you thought of this one. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that jazz. It helps us out a lot on YouTube, so please do. And of course, you can head over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. For as little as $1 per month, you can support us over there and get some bonuses for your trouble and help keep all the content coming. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have a yacht. Eddie Vanilla.